Coming up on today's edition of the Bullpen with Adam the Bull, brought to you by Bet Rivers. I'll be joined with NFL reporter Aditi Kinkhabwala. She joins me. She has great insight on the entire AFC North and specifically the Cleveland Browns as she's part of the preseason broadcast team. That's coming up next right here in the Bullpen with Adam the Bull, brought to you by Bet Rivers.
You're watching Adam the Bull on the Bet Rivers Network.
All right, welcome back to the Bullpen with Adam the Bull, brought to you by Bet Rivers, and we're now joined by longtime NFL reporter, now with CBS, Aditi Kinkhabwala. How are you?
I'm
Good
fantastic.
to see you.
You only describe me as longtime NFL reporter, not longtime friend. Don't you feel like at this point we've been longtime friends?
That's true. We have been longtime friends, but I don't know. I don't know why I didn't say that.
Maybe I'm not forcing it onto you.
No. I definitely think of you as a friend, and most of the guests I have are not friends. I don't really know them.
Should you be saying that? Should you be saying that?
No, but it's not an insult. It's just I don't know them personally. Not that I wouldn't be friends if I knew them, but I know you personally.
True.
We have socialized together.
We have.
So I know you, but I haven't. I've had, Sean King and Terry Francona. I've never hung out with those guys. So,
They're lost, clearly. I mean, you should have told Terry Francona you could take him to the best ice cream place in the Cleveland metro area.
That's true. I think, well, I don't want to get myself in trouble. But, yes, I could have. I could take him. But, he was here long enough that he should know. I mean, you don't live in Cleveland.
Do they call it the Cleveland metro area, or is it the Cleveland area? What is the surrounding area of Cleveland called?
It's more like it's referred to as Northeast Ohio.
Okay.
Yeah, and that would include the Cleveland area, Akron, Canton.
Oh, wow. So that's actually quite a large area.
It is. Now, Canton and Akron for like a rate in terms of TV have their own market. Canton Akron is one, but we think of that as the Cleveland area because all the people from there root for all the Cleveland teams.
Wait, so like the local CBS in Cleveland is different than the local CBS in Akron, Canton?
Now I can't remember. I think so.
I'm taking this completely off the rails. So if we started as friends, we may not be friends at the end of this.
Now I'm not sure. Now I'm like, wait, maybe it's just radio that it's technically a separate market. And maybe TV, it's the same market. I can't remember now. I should know that.
Your listeners will call in and let you know. Comment in, whatever.
Right, and straighten me out. But a lot to talk about as we head into the offseason. And it's funny because there's been a lot of talk with where a lot of local media members have said, and I've said it, like the Browns look pretty far away. However, we've seen 2 years in a row that the turnaround can happen in a hurry. The Texans were terrible before they got C.J. Stroud. Now they've been in the playoffs 2 years in a row. Washington, terrible before they got Jaden Daniels. They turned around there in the NFC Championship game. Now, there are some differences. Obviously, Washington got a new owner, a new GM, a new head coach, and they're in the significantly weaker NFC. For C.J. Stroud and the Texans, also a new head coach, not a new owner, but new head coach. And while they're in the AFC, they're in the weakest division in the AFC South. The Browns have to obviously contend with two of the four best quarterbacks in football, Lamar Jackson and Joe Burrow, and a Steelers team that's always competitive. So that's a challenge the other teams don't have to face. But I say all that to say that, and I don't know that there's a Jaden Daniels or a C.J. Stroud in this draft. I'm not a draft expert. I'm not sure. But if they find that next great quarterback in this draft, it can turn around in a hurry. Don't you think?
Well, it sure can, right? Yeah. Because if they go back to what they really should be doing in terms of how they run the ball and running Kevin Stefanski's offense, then they certainly have the ability to do that. They like their backs, even as we don't know if Nick Chubb will come back or not. There is something there. They like their wide receivers. There's some young talent there. They like their tight ends. And that defense did get itself back in order as the season went on. As it seems, Myles Garrett, which is kind of the engine that's going, is back in the fold and expects to be there and is chasing his immortality. So you don't expect him to have a drop-off in any way. It is certainly possible, but the quarterback is the big key thing. I would just say to you, don't forget about Minnesota, in that it looked like JJ McCarthy was going to be their answer. He gets hurt in training camp. Everybody had written off Sam Darnold as a bust, but all he had really needed was that year in San Francisco, learning from Kyle Shanahan, really getting good teaching, good coaching, and then having that continue with Kevin McConnell and the Minnesota staff, and look at what he did. So the only answer isn't necessarily finding a person in the draft. And I don't know, I'm not a draft expert either. Right now, from where I sit, I don't see another Jaden Daniels. I don't know that there's another CJ Stroud.
That's fair, but the one thing I'll say, that I was just saying this before, you think about the best quarterbacks in the league. Patrick Mahomes was not the first quarterback taken in his draft.
Correct.
The Browns had the first pick that year. On our show at the time, Bull and Fox, we never discussed drafting Patrick Mahomes. Lamar Jackson was the fifth quarterback taken in his draft. Josh Allen was the third quarterback taken in his draft. Joe Burrow went one, yes, but if you would have asked a year earlier,
right,
Joe Burrow wouldn't even been in consideration for a first-round pick, let alone one overall. Jaden Daniels, second quarterback drafted. CJ Stroud, second quarterback drafted. So just because there's not necessarily the hype, and and also most years, there's at least one quarterback in the draft that turns out to be a good player, with very few exceptions.
Sean Payton loved Bo Nix. Now, we'll see how this all shakes out. That's not to say that he didn't like Jaden Daniels, and I can tell you he did actually really like Jaden Daniels. But Sean Payton loved Bo Nix. That's the guy that he wanted. He told us how he was panicking because he really, really wanted Bo Nix. So again, beauty is in the eye of the beholder in a lot of ways. A lot of it is who's going to fit what you want to do best, because this is not a one-size-fits-all situation. Some quarterbacks are better suited to certain situations. I mean, I can tell you this, Brandon Beane, I was there for the draft when the Bills were drafting Josh Allen. Brandon Beane loved Josh Allen. That's the one that he wanted. Yeah. So yes, there's a piece of luck. Sometimes somebody falls to you, but there's also this piece that the one that you love the best may not be the one that the team choosing first loves best.
That's true. That's true. But my point is really that the hyped guy all the time is not necessarily the best guy. Correct. Yes.
And
a lot of times, and this drives me crazy because I used to do this too, and I've tried to stop myself. A lot of times, the draft is judged when it happens based on what the mock draft said.
Right.
Which is insane if you think about it.
Well, there's a time, it's funny because I was talking about this a few years ago with a front office executive about all of the groupthink associated with quarterback.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, people are driven by fear of being wrong. And there is no place that you are more glaringly wrong than at quarterback. And so where you see the most groupthink and where you see people less likely to go out on a limb is at the position of quarterback. And that, I remember this front office exec saying to me that the area where you can almost be most convinced to think the way other people think is at quarterback. At corner, you may sit here. I mean, I remember I was at Denzel Ward's pro day, and I remember hearing some people chattering during the pro day. When I say people, I mean these are various scouts or whatever, saying they needed to see how he tracks the ball and could he really track the ball, and they weren't sure about that. Oh my gosh, he blew them away. Of course he could track the ball. That's like the last thing. But for the position of cornerback, people might throw that out there, like you may say, hey, I wonder if he can track the ball. And then I may say, oh, well, maybe I should check if he could track the ball. And someone else might. But it's not going to dissuade you in the same way as if you hear a knock about a quarterback.
Yeah, no doubt about it. There is, it's 100% correct. There's groupthink when it comes to quarterbacks. And you screw up the quarterback, very often it can cost you a job.
Yeah.
That's it, with rare exceptions.
And it's funny because you don't hit on that. I mean, that's why so many are taken early, but it's not like every single one of them turns into a Hall of Famer.
No, and that's true. Now, most of the good quarterbacks in the NFL are first-round picks. However, there are plenty of first-round picks at the position that are not any good. And that's, so.
Or have needed a second or third stop.
That's true. And the Sam Darnold situation... The Sam Darnold situation is going to be interesting, Aditi, because obviously he had a great season. He had a bad end of the season, played poorly against Detroit in the last regular season game, played poorly in the playoff game. And Kevin O'Connell had some kind of interesting comments after that game. It made it seem like they were going to move on to J.J. McCarthy next year. I don't know. I'll be curious to see where Sam Darnold is next year and how good he is next year.
I don't. The feeling that I'm getting is that the Vikings are not looking at committing 3 years and a lot of money to Sam Darnold. They really like J.J. McCarthy. Yeah. They like the way his rehab has gone. They feel that his ceiling is higher. And so why, if you were able to bring Sam Darnold in on a reasonable 1 or 2 year deal, and then you say, okay, maybe JJ sits again for a little bit, and if he pushes him, then Sam will be our backup, and he'll be a more than capable backup. But I think Sam Darnold, from what I've been told, Sam Darnold is looking for something much bigger than that, and the Vikings aren't interested in committing something much bigger than that.
I think that makes sense. If I were the Vikings in a perfect scenario, I'd sign Darnold to a 1 year contract. Now, maybe he gets a bigger offer. I guess they could franchise him if they wanted. It's a lot of money, but they're not paying McCarthy anything. I'd want to keep him around 1 more year because to me, you always got even with C.J. Stroud, as great as Jaden Daniels was, and today I said, which seems obvious to me, we were talking about this today. I was like, I'd trade Myles Garrett for Jaden Daniels in a second. It doesn't matter that Myles Garrett's a Hall of Famer. The Browns won 3 games with Myles Garrett. If the Browns had Jaden Daniels this year, they wouldn't have won 3 games.
Right.
Because you got to have the quarterback.
I mean, it's the position of quarterback. That's right. I was having this conversation with someone on the Raiders coaching staff, on the previous Raiders coaching staff, when I was talking about my Rookie of the Year ballot. Yeah. And this person was trying to make this argument of why Brock Bowers was the Rookie of the Year. And I said, I'm really sorry, but the most difficult position to play in the National Football League is the position of quarterback. And what Jaden Daniels has done, and in leading all those comeback victories, his poise, his cool, he touches the ball on every play. You cannot tell me, in my personal opinion, you cannot sway my mind that Brock Bowers has been a more impressive rookie than Jaden Daniels has.
No, and Brock Bowers was amazing as a rookie. Amazing.
Correct.
But it's not even close.
Strong argument that Bo Nix was a more impressive rookie and that Brian Thomas even had a more impressive rookie season.
I'd 100% put Bo Nix ahead of Brock Bowers, and I love Brock Bowers. Impressive as a rookie. He played with garbage quarterbacks and had an amazing season. It's fantastic. It's zero knock at him, but you're right. It's all about if you think about Bo Nix.
It's about the position, and it's about the matchups, too. Even if you're talking about a wide receiver in Brian Thomas, who also had uneven quarterback play, who also played on a team that had absolutely nobody. There was nobody on the Jaguars team drawing any attention from defenses other than Brian Thomas. But Brian Thomas, every single week, has to go against the other team's shutdown corner.
Right.
So your best defensive backfield athlete every week is getting matched up on Brian Thomas. Brian Thomas's teammates are drawing no attention. Everything is focused on stopping Brian Thomas, and yet he kept producing. Now, Brock Bowers, yes, he also didn't have great quarterback play. Yes, his offense didn't really garner. Yeah. We can sit here and we can talk about all that. But Brock Bowers, by virtue of his position, is always a mismatch. Right? He's always going up against linebackers, or he's always running against safeties. He's, so again, and I'm not trying to make this argument that Brian Thomas had a better year than Brock Bowers or Brock Bowers had a better than Brian Thomas. We won't get into that. I'm just saying that so much of that is subjective.
That's right.
The quarterback piece, though, is really hard to be subjective about because it's the quarterback. It's the leader of your offense. He's the guy that touches the ball on every snap. And
I would argue that in Bo Nix's case, and I would vote for Jaden Daniels, same as you, but Bo Nix, outside of probably Drake May, has as little talent around him at the skill positions as anybody.
Courtland Sutton is not. Drake May had way less talent.
Yeah, way less.
But correct, it's not like Bo Nix is playing with Jamar Chase or playing with Justin Jefferson. Yeah. So, I will I'm not supposed to, in theory, I'm not supposed to reveal any of my votes until the awards are given. But So let's just move on.
Okay.
Because I think what Bo Nix did, and also in running a very, very, very difficult offense, it's not like Sean Payton dumped things down for him.
Yes.
It's not like this is Ben Roethlisberger's rookie season where you have this monster defense and you have this monster run game and you only have one read in one half of the field, or, one half of the field, and it's either this run play or this pass play.
And by the way, I some people would say this shouldn't matter in an individual award, but Jaden Daniels not only played quarterback, but played meaningful games. Brock Bowers didn't play any meaningful games.
True.
And neither did Brian Thomas, neither did Malik Neighbors, who had a great, really good rookie season.
Well, and that you say in everything, even like Defensive Player of the Year.
Oh, yeah, I'm not voting for Myles Garrett.
You're looking at what did you do in the biggest moments? For me, the biggest stars rise when the spotlight is its strongest. So, a sack in the fourth quarter to seal a game is worth a little bit more than a first quarter sack and a loss.
Well, don't even get me started on Defensive Player of the Year because I think that's the most, outside of Comeback Player of the Year, it's the most narrative-driven award. A lot of times it's based on who has the most sacks, although this year, because it's Trey Hendrickson, who gets no love at all, he'll be discarded, even though he has even less talent around him than Myles Garrett does. Way less talent, actually. But it's usually based on sacks, and sacks make up probably less than 1% of the plays these guys this is
where, for me as a voter, I am not that stats driven.
All right, good.
Because I think first of all, there's a million more stats. There's a get home rate. There's a pressure rate.
True.
It is not the Edge Rusher of the Year award.
That's right.
Even though it turns into that. I actually talked to a lot of people, to offensive coordinators, to general managers, to offensive line coaches. Who are you most afraid of blowing up your game? Who are the biggest game wreckers? Who are the ones that you need to devote the most attention to? Mm-hmm. It's like all those years that the Steelers had Antonio Brown and Le'Veon Bell, and people talked about what a great threat Le'Veon Bell was to both run the ball and catch the ball, and how dynamic of a back he was, this, that, and the other. There was no defensive coordinator that I ever spoke to that didn't tell me big threat number one on the board was Antonio Brown.
Right. That
their resources were devoted to stopping Antonio Brown before they ever got to Le'Veon Bell. And so it's sort of in the same way with Defensive Player of the Year. Yes, Trey Hendrickson produced a lot. Yes, Trey Hendrickson had himself a very nice season. But there were too many offensive coaches I spoke to who told me we never really felt him in the game. And whereas a Myles Garrett, you feel him in a game. Even a TJ Watt, who had not a particularly TJ Watt-like year, you feel him in a game. So those are things that I certainly took into consideration beyond just what the stats are.
All right, and that's fair. I mean, it's hard.
It's all subjective. Again, it's subjective.
Yeah.
So
in terms of the Browns and, they're playing at quarterback, we'll see. Do you have a gut feeling about whether or not they're going to draft a quarterback or no?
I mean, I don't. I think that they have to. I've heard so many times, and that doesn't mean when I say I think they have to, that doesn't mean that, okay, their first pick will be used on a quarterback or that they will aggressively be moving to get a quarterback. But I have many times been told through my career that it's important every few years to make sure that you bring in a young quarterback. And that's just part of the process. So it would seem they're due to do so, especially because your favorite player, Dorian Thompson-Robinson, may not quite be a solution.
Yeah. And you talked about the Browns' skill positions, and I know the Browns like what they have. I'm not really as high on their skill position talent as they are. I think Jerry Jeudy's a good receiver to me in a perfect world. I know he had a really good year. He's got the Pro Bowl. He had
Which
some
is a popularity contest, to be fair.
Right. I think he's a 2. To me, he's not a 1. Or even if he is a 1, he's not a 1 like Jamar Chase, like Justin. He's not in that level of wide receiver. So I think they definitely need another wide receiver. I don't like Jerome Ford more than his change of pace back. I think they need a legitimate starting running back, and I think it's something they have to address in the draft. So we'll see. I mean, you could get a great running back in the second, third, fourth round. That happens all the time.
Yep.
And Njoku's, he's a good player. He's not special.
I mean, we're not sitting here talking about these guys as all pros or a completely Pro Bowl laden roster, but it's not, you can get better at every position for sure, but it's also not a roster as bereft of talent as, say, the Patriots.
No, not even close. Not even close.
And we had the Patriots a bunch this year. Their wide receivers are nice human beings, but not a one of them is a wide receiver 3 on any other team.
No,
and
that's
so
correct.
You can sit here and Jerry Jeudy, he's not a 1A, he's a 1B.
Yes.
He's Robin.
I could go with that.
He's a bit better than a 2, but I sure would like to see him paired with another 1.
Yes.
And if you could get him with a 1A, with a Terry McLaurin, a Justin Jefferson, a Jamar Chase, then awesome, even better. Then he'll look even better. But if you can even get someone who is essentially equivalent to him, and that's not what Elijah Moore has been, and I don't know, is Cedric Tillman going to turn into that? We've seen flashes. But again, the uneven quarterback play and the craziness with the offense, the completely misguided offense and the changes and the mess that they had in their implementation and teaching of this augmented offense or whatever you want to call it. It's hard to get a full and fair assessment of what Cedric Tillman can be. Not everyone, I'll use the same name, Brian Thomas. Not everybody comes in as a rookie and lights it up for 1,000 yards like Brian Thomas and Malik Neighbors. Right. Some guys take a little bit of time. Antonio Brown took a little bit of time. That was a 6th-round pick right there.
Yeah.
That's true. So I'm not willing to give up on him as not having potential.
You mean Tillman?
Correct.
Yeah. The frustrating thing about Tillman is he was like Jeudy. He was kind of playing his best football there with Jameis, and then he got the concussion and he missed the rest of the year.
And that's what makes it so hard.
Yeah. I'm fine with Cedric Tillman. We'll see what his ceiling is. My guess is it's not a number 1 receiver, but is he a guy who can be at least a 3rd receiver in the NFL? Sure. I think
there's no question about that.
Yeah,
he's got a nice big body and for sure.
So, but it's still, I just think it's tricky in this division because the Ravens have the most skilled position talent they've ever had, in Lamar's time, right? Now, how many great years does Derrick Henry have left? You could ask that, but he was still amazing this year. So it's hard to write him off. I know running backs can go off the cliff in a hurry.
No, but you know what? Derrick Henry supposedly went off the cliff in Tennessee because if you talked to anybody a year ago, he was washed. Now you can make the argument that wasn't a very good offense in Tennessee last year. That offensive line wasn't particularly good, but it certainly felt like Derrick Henry was washed. Now every single running back that you pair with Lamar Jackson does get better, and this was definitely a situation of Lamar Jackson and that offense creating more opportunity for Derrick Henry, but he sure as heck outran a lot of people, and he still ran over people, and there was new life there. So I feel differently about Derrick Henry and his future today than I did this time last year.
Oh,
and
absolutely.
I don't think that he's done by any means.
No, and
this is the nature. This is why that game was so. Mark Andrews, let me just say this. Mark Andrews, have you ever talked to him?
No.
Mark Andrews is one of the all-time good guys, like just a tremendous, tremendous, tremendous human. And he's been Mr. Reliable, Mr. Dependable for so long. He has been Lamar Jackson's security blanket from the word go. And to see him have to suffer through not only the fumble, but then the drop at the end, I just feel so bad for him. I really, truly do. Because no one's going to beat him up more than he himself will beat himself up.
Sure.
No one will feel the pain of that more than he himself will feel the pain of that. And I just feel sorry for him that he has to feel that.
Yeah. The whole thing with Lamar Jackson and Josh Allen drives me nuts. They both lost to each other the last 2 years. I mean, I can't kill either of them. They're both great quarterbacks. I believe that at some point both will win a Super Bowl. I believe that. And Peyton Manning didn't have a good record in the postseason early in his career.
Correct.
Writing off guys. Listen, Lamar did not play a great game. He didn't play a great game. He made some mistakes, but he drove him down the end. I know Sean King, the former NFL quarterback, was said that Lamar's pass could have been better on that pass to Andrews, which is fair, and he would know as a quarterback. But what pisses me off is that people just killed him for saying that, as if I hate this that if you say one bad thing, that means you're a hater of a guy, and it's unfair. You've got to be fair and critical. Even it's fair to say
we're not in a rational climate anymore.
No, we're not.
Like whether we were talking sports or politics or the weather outside. I mean, it's all about extremes, and the gray feels to be gone from society. It really is. In a lot of ways. It's really black or white, and that's all there is.
You got to be in the Josh Allen camp or the Lamar camp.
Could Lamar have made a little bit of a better pass? Sure. But should your tight end make a tough catch for you?
Of course.
Yes.
Of course.
Like, at the end of the day, you got two hands on the ball. It's not blaming anyone. And again, it's the same. I saw somebody say this. I don't know who, so I can't give credit. But imagine if things were reversed. Imagine if Mark Andrews' drop had come earlier and Lamar Jackson's interception or his own fumble had come later, then would we look at it differently? Lamar's early fumble, it was, what are you doing with the ball? At some point, just take the sack and go down. Yeah. But if that had happened in the fourth quarter, maybe the whole narrative and the framing is completely different.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely. And they seem to have a very healthy respect for each other in terms of Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. They're just really, it's funny. I probably can't reveal who I was chatting with because it would give it away. But I'll say this. I was talking to somebody who is retired now, who played with Lamar and has also played with other quarterbacks in his career, other extremely high level, one likely Hall of Fame quarterback. And he just said, Lamar is the best teammate anybody could ever have at quarterback. And that is exactly what Bills players will tell you about Josh Allen. Yeah. And when you see players know when somebody else's teammates like a guy. Yeah. And so that's a big piece of the respect, I think.
Yeah. By the way, I was thinking back also, things, tell me if you think I'm crazy. Because going into this past season, everybody would have ranked the Bengals backfield as the worst in the division. And if I were the Bengals, now with in the Ravens case, it's age, but I would not trade Chase Brown for any running back in the AFC North. I mean,
he had such a monster year. And I'll tell you this, because I did talk to him this year, you would love, 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 love his demeanor.
I bet.
This is so at the end of last season, he and Zach Taylor had their exit interview. And one of the things that they were talking about is that, Chase could get better at catching the ball. Yeah. And so Chase went down. Help me out, Andre, what's Andre's last name?
Yoshivas.
Yes, Andre Yoshivas. So Andre Yoshivas, who is a wide receiver, is going down to, I'd have to check my notes, but I want to say I think it's Atlanta, to work with a wide receiver coach on catching. And Chase said, I want to come with you. Chase Brown said, I want to come with you. So Chase Brown, a running back, spent 3 months of the offseason with a wide receiver and a wide receiver coach on catching the ball and everything there is to do to catch a ball. Yeah. He clearly came back better. When I asked Joe Burrow about it, Joe was like, I don't know if I ever saw him catch a ball last year, which is not true because he did catch some balls. Maybe they were all from Jake Browning. But he was talking about how committedly Chase Brown had worked at it. Yeah. And this is a funny one. I said to Chase Brown, I was like, why did you feel like it was so important to become that good of a pass catcher? And he's like, well, in our offense, we kind of throw the ball.
Yeah, you think?
Yes, you do, Chase Brown. But the point is that here's a young player. Yeah. And he is so committed to getting better. And another thing he said to me is that the success that he's having makes him so much hungrier to have more success. I mean, and that's how I'm wired, like you do well, you just want to keep doing even more and more.
Yeah, makes sense.
And you know what? This is a story I didn't get to tell in our game, so you'll have to indulge me. Chase Brown has a twin brother who plays for the Philadelphia Eagles. Right. And his twin, is it Sidney? Is that his brother's name?
I think you're right, yes. Yeah, I believe so.
Okay, so he's a defensive back. So I asked Chase, how did he end up being a running back and Sidney ends up, if Sidney's his name, I should probably check that.
I think you're right. I'll double check it, but I think you're right.
Okay, thanks. So how did his twin end up being a DB? So Chase said when they were little, playing, Pop Warner, Pee Wee football, whatever, Chase actually played defense and his brother was the running back. But then one day his brother was sick. And so the coach said, well, I need a running back. Chase, you go in for your brother. and he took his brother's spot. And that was the end of it.
That's it. And it is Sydney. You were correct.
Yeah. It is it Sydney?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Right. So he never even wanted to play running back until he goes in for his brother. He steals his brother's position. His brother has no option but to go and play DB. But then he says to me, it's like, it all worked out for us.
It did. It certainly did. It worked out for both of them. Let's wrap it up back with the Browns, Aditi. And obviously, they've hired Tommy Rees as their OC. Mm-hmm. I don't know how well you know him. Obviously, you're around the Browns a lot, especially in the preseason and into the regular season. I know he's highly thought of. I know Nick Saban had some very positive comments about him, I believe a year ago it was, or maybe 2 years ago. What do you think of Tommy Rees, and what does it signal to you that they've made him the OC?
Something that I really like is that they brought in Mike Vrabel to be a consultant. And from the very get-go, Kevin Stefanski had Mike Vrabel working with the tight ends. And Tommy Rees not only was open to that, but was a sponge. He and Mike Vrabel ended up forging this wonderful relationship, so much so that there was quite a bit of chatter that Mike Vrabel might offer Tommy Rees the Patriots OC job when he got that job. But to me, that's a great mark of a young coach who is going to use every resource available to him, who is not threatened, who is not territorial, who is not so set in his ways, but is actually, how do I get better? And how do I be a support and a resource to somebody else? And I think that Tommy Rees's teaching, from what I've witnessed, seems to be on point. He seems to be a very good communicator, and I think he'll make a good partner to Kevin Stefanski.
And I would assume, are you assuming Kevin will call plays again this year? I know you're a fan of being a CEO.
It's funny you say that, because the whole time that Alex Van Pelt was here, I was repeatedly on the record saying, I like a head coach who can oversee the entire operation. I like a head coach who, if the defense needs a little help, is available to go and be with the defense. Right. I'll tell you a story. I was asking Sean McDermott, who's the Buffalo Bills head coach. Last year, he was pressed in. His background is in defense. He was the Panthers defensive coordinator before he took the Bills head job. Yeah. Last year, he was pressed into calling the defense because Leslie Frazier had left sort of late in the offseason. Right. And this year, he is not calling the defense. So I said to him before our game week 18, I said, so now that you're not calling the defense, what has that been like? And he said, well, Aditi, I can mow my lawn once a week. He said it's therapeutic to him. But he also said that he feels he can be the best head coach when he is the head coach to the entire team. Right. He has more time, not just to mow the lawn, but to go in and sit with Josh Allen and with Joe Brady, to address special teams if necessary, to take kind of a 30,000-foot view, but also coach his coaches when necessary. I like that. I like that model. I was on the record multiple times saying Kevin Stefanski should allow Alex Van Pelt to call the plays. He's obviously going to have input on game day. Every head coach ultimately is the one who decides if you go for it on fourth, or can always veto a play or override a play call. He never did it. Then this year, I was adamant that Ken Dorsey should not get play calling duties. It, of course, happened. And so now, I don't know enough about Tommy Rees as a play caller. Right. And I certainly feel much better about Kevin Stefanski as a play caller than I did about Ken Dorsey. Yeah. And I also feel like, Kevin Stefanski did it someone else's way this last year. Yeah. Let his offense be kind of hijacked from him. Yeah. He had to watch Drew Petzing run his offense and had to watch Alex Van Pelt run his offense. He couldn't run his own offense. So he is the head coach. It is his prerogative to do what he thinks is best for his team. And if he feels that that's calling plays, then so be it.
Yeah, I wonder. I think it makes a lot of sense for him to call plays this season. But I wonder going into the future. Now, he better win this year, or there may not be a future in Cleveland for him. But, But let's say things go well, and the offense is
then he may be ready to hand it off.
And maybe at some point he hands it off to Tommy Rees, because maybe you got to do that to keep him. Who knows? But
maybe Tommy Rees is a very natural, instinctive play caller. Maybe But again, and we've talked about this before. There are a lot of head coaches that now call offensive plays that never called offensive plays until they were head coaches. and are
Yeah.
actually great at it. So like a Mike McDaniel or like a Kevin O'Connell, like a Zach Taylor.
Yeah.
So Tommy Rees very well could be a great play caller. Just because we haven't seen it doesn't mean that he's not. Those guys all obviously were great play callers and never had the opportunity.
I would debate that Zach Taylor's a great play caller.
Okay.
But
I knew, as soon as I said that, we could have conversations about situational football.
You know what?
Give me Mike McDaniel and Kevin O'Connell. How about that?
Yeah. I mean, Joe does seem to like Zach Taylor. So if Joe likes him, it's fine with me, unless he doesn't really like him and he's just pretending to like him.
I've heard coaches say good players make coaches look good.
Yeah, damn right.
So we'll just leave it at that one.
Ain't that the truth? And even Kevin Stefanski, while he did call plays, I think a year and change in Minnesota, it wasn't like he had he didn't have a long history of calling plays. It wasn't that much experience in that vein.
But he did when Case Keenum was the quarterback, right?
Yeah.
That year with the Minnesota Miracle.
Yep. Which is still hard to believe. All right. What's your prediction? We'll wrap it up. What your prediction for these games? What do you think?
So I think the Bills can upset the Chiefs.
You better say that or your son's going to be pissed.
I know. This is my trouble. This is my problem. I feel like it's bad luck when I say that. Last year, I thought that the Chiefs would lose to the Bills. I was wrong. Then I thought the Chiefs would lose to the Ravens. Then I was wrong. So then by the Super Bowl, I knew not to bet against the Chiefs.
Right.
The Bills are playing really well, and their defense has gotten healthy and has come around. And the Chiefs have had a lot of tremendous things go their way this year. And a lot of that, I think, is a result of their own confidence. Good teams expect good things to happen. Good teams expect to pull out wins. But at some point, maybe it's just the fan in me wants to see some new blood.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so there's that. And then the other one, I don't know. Isn't Jaden Daniels such a great story?
Oh, I'm so rooting for him.
I mean, this is a 4-win team. It's been less than a full year. It hasn't even been 12 months since they brought in a new head coach, a new offensive coordinator, a new defensive coordinator, then bring in a rookie quarterback.
New owner. Yeah.
Well, how long has the ownership been? Is that 12 months? I think
maybe it's like a year and change, but I mean, it's pretty new.
I mean, and you kind of feel for that fan base for all the things that they did go through. I think I root for stories at this point. I think that would be a really
rookie has a rookie ever started a Super Bowl as a quarterback? I mean, I don't know. Maybe it has. It's not coming to me off the top of my head, but to get to the Super Bowl as a rookie would just be incredible.
And I think that the Dan Quinn story is a really cool story too, because Dan Quinn is a really, really, really nice man, and he learned a lot from his first go around, and he took in a lot of feedback from a lot of people on how he could be better. It wasn't just, I got screwed, or, I didn't have enough time, or, it was, no. Okay, I didn't hold on to that job because I didn't do what I was supposed to do. So let me see how I can be better. And I really appreciate that.
Last thing when it comes to the Bills, I have a theory here, and I'm curious your thoughts on this. I think everybody in the NFL, fans, media, but when fans and media are obsessed with these things, it doesn't really matter. But I think what's happened this year is that a lot of teams in the NFL, everybody's obsessed that it seems like, I don't really buy it, that the Chiefs get every call, right? And we saw, yes, there were some bad calls that went in their favor. That's fine. And everybody said every call goes in their favor. I'm sure it's not actually true. Listen, as a Bengals fan, I have the right to complain as much as anybody about. I never complain about officials. I think it's a loser mentality, especially when players complain about officials. And when the Texans game was over, all you heard from the Texans was the officials. I think there are teams this year that have gone into games with the Chiefs and have been obsessed with the fact that we got to overcome the officials. And you're already behind if the Bills are thinking about the officials.
If you're already battling them before you've even kicked off, then that's a head game then.
Yeah.
And, at some point, it just makes me think of all the coaches I've had in my life that say, don't leave that much room, leave more room then. Be that much better.
Yes.
And if you have to deal with, the crowd noise, if you have to deal with sloppy footing, if you have to deal with conditions and elements, if you have to deal with this perception that the officials are calling your holds tighter than they are theirs, then just be that much better.
That's right.
I mean, don't let it.
Can't control it.
Exactly.
The league's not cheating. This idea that the league is what is the benefit? The downside if the league was found to be cheating is so much worse than whatever upside there may be to have Taylor Swift on TV for 10 seconds. I don't know.
I think they've gotten everything out of that at this point that they can, and now there may actually be some Taylor and Travis and Caitlin Clark and all that fatigue that there may actually be new juice in this long-suffering fan base being in there.
I've had enough, and I like Travis, and I'm not a fan of Taylor Swift's music personally, but I like her.
Really?
I like her.
You're not, listen, that's not your
It's not my cup of tea.
There.
I'm not. She's obviously talented. She's just not my cup of tea. I love Caitlin Clark, love them all, but I'm sick. I'm not sick of Caitlin Clark. I'm sick of Travis. He's a Cleveland guy. We love him.
Yeah,
but I'm sick of Jason. I'm sick of Travis, and I'm sick of. I'm not
Taylor. Sick of them as people by any means, but again, you like to see.
Yeah,
I'd like to see some new blood.
Yes,
that's it. But then I have this major problem, and I need to go because my kids need me to go. But
go.
I mean, think about this. I've been to at least a dozen Super Bowls. Right now, I'm not scheduled to be at the Super Bowl. I have one son. Oh, no. This one son who was born and is being raised in Pittsburgh, is a diehard Bills fan, has been a Bills fan since he was 2 years old, since Josh Allen was drafted. I mean, bleeds it. His sheets are built like this is everything.
Yeah.
If the Bills are in the Super Bowl, what do I do?
I know.
I mean, I have the ability to potentially get tickets. Now, airfare would be absolutely obnoxious. Hotel would be obnoxious.
Yeah.
But could it be a once-in-a-lifetime mommy-son experience?
Oh, yeah.
That he'll remember forever? And
where is it this year? I can't remember where the Super Bowl is.
New Orleans.
Oh, New Orleans.
And not everybody has the ability.
That's true.
I mean, some people, we don't have the ability to go like second market, whatever, buy Super Bowl tickets. But in theory, I would hope that I have enough contacts around the league or the Bills or whatever that maybe I could get my hands for face value, which also would be obnoxiously expensive.
Yes.
I mean, I don't think my family would have ever taken a vacation for as much as a Super Bowl trip and 2 tickets would cost.
That's right.
But do I try to make this happen for my son? Or since Josh Allen is is not yet 30 years old, do I hope there's another opportunity in the future when it's a Super Bowl that I'm actually sent to for work? So at least my hotel is covered.
Yeah.
And do I risk the wrath of my husband if I even try to make this happen?
I got a couple of comments on that, and then I'll let you go because obviously you've been here so long. Number one, if your son believes in jinxes, I personally don't, but if he does, this conversation is a big jinx.
I know.
Number two,
what are all the things like throw salt over my shoulder?
Yeah. Number two, forget the wrath of your husband. I mean, we don't worry about it. You can't worry about that stuff. Let's say he's got to suck it up.
I mean,
it's a special mommy son.
And I'll be stuck in the house with my husband. Let's be honest here.
Yeah, well, but it's a special mommy son event. And number three, you should talk to Dustin because he played for the Bills, obviously, and his son is also a huge Bills fan. So maybe you guys could, discuss it together, what the game plan should be. I don't know.
I don't, it's funny because week 18, I had the Bills and it was in New England and it wouldn't have cost me. My hotel is taken care of. The cars are taken care of. All I would have needed to do was buy Nico's airfare.
Right.
I could get a ticket to the game. The Patriots are amazing. They would have given me a field pass.
Yeah.
And, I told my husband I wanted to do that. I wanted to take Nico with me, and he just lost it. He said, you know what? If the kid wants to wear some Bills hats and he wants to watch the Bills on TV, fine, but he is not making road trips to go see that team.
Wow.
Yeah.
All right.
I'm telling you, this whole Steelers thing is a little cultish.
I'm not going to rip you. I'm not going to rip your husband on air. I don't think that'd be appropriate, but I disagree with his stance.
I mean, the Super Bowl is a little different, I feel.
That's
so.
True.
Anyway, all right. Well, let's hope I didn't make the conversation moot, or in a week we'll be talking about Travis and Taylor again.
That's true. It could, and maybe forget Travis and Taylor. I mean, it's your family situation might be a more interesting story right now.
I may be single again. For all we know.
Thanks for watching and thanks for listening, and great talking with Aditi as always. Thanks to Z and Alex for producing today. And thanks, of course, to Aditi for joining me. I'll talk to you next time. I'll have Sean King got into some feisty debates about Jameis Winston. He got into it on Twitter with people about Lamar Jackson. He'll be with me on Wednesday's podcast and a Bull and Fox edition Thursday live at 2. Until then, we'll see you next time. Where else but right here in the Bullpen with Adam the Bull, brought to you by Bet Rivers. See you, everybody.